Welcome. Let's get started. This is some notes. This is called linear regression. And my board's a little off already. To find these notes, we're going to do these notes. It's in your course pack on page 201. You also need to have your graphing calculator. If you do not have a graphing calculator, you're not going to be able to do these notes because I'm actually going to show you how to find the line for a scatter plot using your calculator. You have to have your calculator. Pause, get out your course pack, turn to page 201, and go ahead and find your calculator. Come back and we'll get started. So here's on our example. On her 15th birthday, Penny Save's grandmother gave her a large jar containing quarters. Penny decided to continue to save quarters in the jar. Every few months she counted her quarters and recorded the data in the table. This is our data that we're going to create our scatter plot of. We're going to go ahead and go to our calculator, and we're going to put this in L1 and this data in L2. This is going to be my X data. This is going to be my Y data. You can see this on course pack page 201. So if I go to my next page, this is what I need you to do. Calculator setup and data entry. Clear Y equals. So you bring up your handy dandy calculator. And I'm going to move mine. We're going to hide that. Move over my calculator. Let me check to make sure it's recording. And so I want to go to Y equals, and I want to clear out anything that I have in Y equals. I want to go ahead and hit the button stat. Right here you can see where I'm circling the stat button. I'm going to hit the stat button. I want to hit edit, so that's number 1, or I can hit enter again. That's number 1, or that's enter. So I go ahead and I hit that. I want to make sure that these are clear. If these are not clear, you want to go hit up to L2, hit the clear button. It will empty out everything, and when you arrow down, you see that the column gets cleared. If you go up to L2 and you hit the delete button, the entire column, including the name, disappears. We don't want to do that. We just want to hit clear, not delete. So I go to L1, I go up to the top, I hit clear, I hit down, and it gets rid of all the data that's in there so I can put in new data. L1 is my independent variable, my X. L2 is my dependent variable, my Y. I want to enter in data, and then, or the down arrow, press enter the down arrow after each entry. Press left or right to shift between lists. Check your entry for accuracy. So I'm going to go to my next slide, and here's my data again. Bring up my calculator, and I'm going to enter my data. It's as simple as hitting 3, enter, and it goes down. 5, enter, and it goes down. 8, 12, and so forth. I'm going to enter in all that data. If I hit the right arrow button, it's going to go over to L2, my dependent data, and I can type in 270, hit enter. I can type in 275, hit enter, or I can go ahead and hit the down arrow, and I can enter 376. I'm going to go ahead and pause, and I'm going to bring up, and I'm going to enter in the rest of this data just the way I did. I'm going to enter in 15 through 26, and I'm going to enter in 420 through 830. Go ahead and pause and enter the information into your calculator so we can spend more time working. So now I have all my data entered in. Again, if you don't have this entered into L1 and L2, please go ahead and pause and do that. This is under the stat, under the edit. At this point, this is the most mundane thing I can ask you to do, but you need to do it. I need to make sure that all my data is correct. If data is incorrect, I'm not going to get the right answer. I've gone through all my table matches, my table in the calculator matches my table in the chart, so I can go ahead and move on. I'm going to go to my next slide. I want to plot these points. So to plot my points, again, I'm going to follow what this tells me. I want to hit the second button. I want to hit stat plot. Stat plot is up here behind the y equals, you have to hit second first. And so I hit that. Plot 1, select on. So notice my plot 1 is off right now. So I'm going to go ahead and hit enter. And off is highlighted, so I'm going to hit enter to get on highlighted. My type is a scatter plot. Notice there's other types that I can choose. My X list is L1, my Y list is L2, and here are the different marks. I could arrow down and change things if I want to, but I like these. If I need to change L1 or L2, you need to notice that second 1 will change L1, second 2 will change L2, and I can even work with L3, L4, L5, and L6, but we're just dealing with L1 and L2. So that's how I could change it. So that's my data. It looks good. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to hit graph, and I see absolutely nothing. Now, it says here that I can hit number 9, zoom stat, to find the data points. If you do, beware that the left and bottom edges of the screen may not represent the X and Y axes. You'll need to check the window settings to see what you're looking at. My personal suggestion, instead of changing that, is to make the window. If I look over here, my X minimum is 0, so I'm going to make my X minimum 0. I mean, it's 3. So I'm going to make my X minimum. So I got a window. My X minimum, I'm going to make 0. My X maximum is 26. So in my calculator, I'm going to make it, well, higher than 26. I'm going to make it 30. Count by ones. My quarters, my minimum is 270. My maximum is 830. For now, I'm going to say let's go ahead and keep our minimum at 0. And my maximum, I'm going to go above 830. I'm going to go to 900. Now, 900, if I divide by 10, is 90. So I'm going to have 10 marks that are 90 across, and that's how I got my Y scale. If I can do the same thing for my X scale. 30 divided by 10 is 3. So I can have 10 marks horizontally and 10 marks vertically. I'm going to hit graph now, and there are my data points. I can see the data. It makes sense now. So here's my data. So I've entered that in. I could do zoom 9, but I would prefer to just change the window. So I want to calculate the regression line, the line of best fit. Now, before I do this, what I need to tell you is there are different ways of finding this line of best fit. For the most part, steps 1, 2, and 3 on this little list that I have, which you again have on page 201 of your course pack, I'm going to do those every single time. Steps 4, this extra step I add over here, what comes here after this regression part down here at the bottom, the correlation, don't worry about that too much. R is a correlation coefficient. The closer R is to 1 or -1, the better the fit. R squared can roughly be interpreted as a percentage of the data that lies close to the regression model. So I'm going to show you a couple ways of doing this regression line so you can kind of figure out which one you like best. Generically, I can hit stat. I want to arrow right over to calc. I want to choose number 4, linear regression, so I'm going to arrow down to it. You could just hit the number 4. At this point, I have a couple options. If I just hit enter, it's going to create and give me and show me the linear regression of this. So I'm going to do that. Ta-da, there's the equation. What's the problem of this? Well, the purpose of this is for us to go ahead and be able to graph this. And if I hit y equals, I would have to type that data here into y1. I don't necessarily like to do that. If you look, the next list tells you how to put the regression information into your calculator so that you can actually put it into the Y1. Now, I personally think there's an easier way, and I'm going to show you the easier way, and then I'm going to show you this. So the easier way is this. Again, what you do, you follow steps 1, 2, and 3. I'm going to hit stat. I'm going to go over to calc. I'm going to hit number 4 for linear regression. But at this point, if I do not want to use L1 or L2, I can type in L3 or L4. And notice it has to be L1 comma L2. But I can leave those out if L1 and L2 are what I want to use. What I want to do, though, is I want to go ahead and type in what I have listed over here on the side. Copy this down if you like. I think this is helpful. So what I'm going to do at this point, I'm going to move it over so I can read it better. I'm going to hit VARS. VARS button is right here underneath the keypad. I'm going to write over to YVARS. I want to choose number 1 function, or I can just hit the enter button. And I'm going to choose Y1. So notice it puts a Y1 after linear regression. That tells me that it's going to take my independent variable is going to be, my independent variable is going to be L1. My dependent variable is going to be L2 because those are the default ones. But this Y1 that I just typed in is where it's going to put the equation. So if I bring this back up and hit enter, it shows me the same thing. Here is, it says linear regression. It tells me what A is. It tells me what B is. It tells me it's in the form y equals mx plus b, and that's all well and good. But if I hit the y equals button, not only did it come up with that information, but it also put it into my calculator. Now, if I hit graph, it's going to go ahead and put that line on my scatter plot. Now, a brief pause. If you have a TI-83 or an older version of the operating system, a TI-84, what I did makes 100% sense to you. However, if you hit stat, you go over to calc, and you hit number 4, some of you will come up with a little menu to choose where it's going to say, I'm going to add a page here, where it's going to say linear regression up on the top. Give me 1 second. I will be right back. So on the top, what it actually says, it says lin, reg, and then it says ax plus b. This isn't everybody's, but some people came up with this. It has x list, colon, and it has an L1 sitting there. Then it has y list and a colon and has an L2 sitting there. Then it has this thing that says frequency list, and this again, and then it says store rec EQ, and then it says calculate. Now, if this is what you have, you could arrow down to calculate and just hit enter, and it's going to come up with a linear regression line, and that's perfect. It's using L1 and L2 as my default independent and dependent variables. If you want it to put it straight into the calculator, under this place where it says store regression equation, this is where I want to put my Y1. And this is where you would follow this little list where you would hit vars, yvars, 1 function 1 y1, and that would put a y1 right here. And then when you go down to calculate, it will calculate it, and it will also put it into the calculator the way that I showed you. Now, what if I went to my calculator and I did what I was supposed to do? I finding my linear regression equation. I typed it in just like I did here, but I forget to put that y1, and I hit enter, and it produces it, but it didn't put it into the y equals. How do I get it there? Well, that's what this page, this next little box on your course pack tells you. If you go to vars, excuse me, assuming that this isn't here, if you put the cursor here at y1, hit y equals and put the cursor there at y1, hit 2 for vars, go over, excuse me, go down to statistics, hit enter, and hit right to EQ. And number 1 is regression equation. So if I hit enter, it puts a regression equation wherever my cursor is. That's why I needed to go to y equals. And again, it can graph that line for me. That's another way to graph the same data. I've shown you 3 different ways of doing this depending on your calculator. So let's move on. So find x or y value. If you have an x value, second calc, above the trace key, 1 value, enter the x value, press enter. You may need to adjust the window if you receive an error message if you have a y value. We'll come back to this in a minute, but I'll explain this in a second. So let's look at this. Let's look at the exact questions that we have. Let me grab my course. So hopefully you've been following along as I did this, but I'm going to do it one more time. In my calculator, I went ahead and I created a scatter plot, so I could put that here. Now looking at my data, describe the correlation between the data. Is there a linear pattern? Yes. It looks like a line. Describe the correlation between the data. Well, as x increases, y increases. Okay? Use your calculator to find the equation of the best fit line for this data. Best fit line is this line that I came up with up here. Another word for this, another name for this is a linear regression line because we're using linear regression to actually find this line. So what's that equation? Well, that equation is this that's here in y1. Now, I don't want to write all that out, but I would say that y is equal to 27.1 x, because at the end of all of this is that x, plus 158.9, and that's my linear regression equation. Okay, so that answers questions 1, 2, and 3. Let's go to the next line. Now, add the graph equation to your graph. I already did that, but let me bring that up again. So here's, oh, that's not the right page. Let's go ahead and undo that. Bring back up my calculator. So here's the graph with the line to it. Okay. Number 4 asks, what is the real world meaning of the slope? Well, what was our slope? Like I just said, the equation was y equals 27.1. That's my slope. It was 27.1x plus 158.9. So that tells me that's 127. Remember, this problem was quarters. Penny was saving quarters. So this is collecting 27 quarters a month. What is the meaning of the y-intercept? The y-intercept is this 158.9. That means her grandmother started this by giving her a jar of quarters. So her grandmother gave her about 159 quarters on her 15th birthday. Okay, that's what this is. Whenever I ask for the real world meaning and of either of these, I need to go back to what the word problem was telling me. So let's go to question number 6. Question number 6 says, predict how many quarters Penny will have on her 18th and 25th birthdays. Remember the way that this was set up. If I go back to my original table, way back up here, months was my X, quarters was my Y. So if I go back to this page that I'm on here, predict how many quarters Penny will have on her 18th birthday. So on my calculator, I want my 18th birthday. 18 is number of months. Well, that's 18 years. This was on her 15th birthday. She's now turning 18, so that's been 3 years. But I'm talking about months. So I'd multiply by 12, and so now I need 36 months. And after 36 months, what am I going to have? And this is that next part that they were telling you about. I want to put in an X amount. So I'm going to hit graph. I'm going to make my window to make sure my months goes above 36. So I'm going to make my X max 100 just to make it large and graph it again. At this point, according to the lower left-hand corner where it says to find an X or Y value, I have an X value. So I'm going to hit second trace to go to the calc menu. I want number 1 value. This means an X value. My X value is 36 months. One hit enter. So at 36 months, I'm going to have 1,135.99, or about 1,136 quarters. When did she have 500 quarters? Now remember, 500 is a Y. So this is the number 2 from that same section in my calculator. I want to go ahead and say, I want to hit Y equals and arrow down to Y2. I want this value to be my 500 quarters. Give me 1 second, I'll be right back. That was Miss Eggleston, so I needed to give her a hand with something. So here we go. I want to know where these 2 lines cross. Now before I can graph them, I have to go to Window and make sure that I'm going to go above that 500, and I will. So when I hit graph, I can see my intersection, and we've already learned that if I hit second trace to go to the calc menu, number 5 is intersection, and I hit enter 3 times. My intersection is 12.566339. I will have 500 quarters. So that tells me after 12.6 months, a little over a year, I'll have 500 quarters. On this page, there's also a question number 8 and a question number 9. To save time, part of your homework is double check that you can do a question like number 8. I also skipped the 25 birthdays up here. Please have an answer for the 25th birthday and an answer for 2,000 quarters when you come to class tomorrow. Thank you. The recording is almost 25 minutes, so I'm going to go ahead and end it now. Have a good day. Pause, wait. Here we go.